Okay, so weight loss. I feel like everyone wants to talk about it, everyone's got an opinion, and everyone's trying to sell you something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a minefield out there.
Totally. Fad diets, crazy workout routines. It's enough to make you just want to give up before you even start.
Right. It can feel very overwhelming.
So, what we wanted to do today is cut through all that noise and really dig into what actually works, the kind of stuff that you can actually stick with for the long haul.
Exactly. Sustainability is key here.
So, we're going to base our deep dive today on a really interesting YouTube video. It's called La Mejor Manera de Perder Grasa from the DRRS channel.
Oh, I've seen that one. Yeah, it's got some good stuff in there.
Yeah, it does. And our goal is to pull out those simple, sustainable strategies for weight loss, the stuff that you can actually fit into your life.
Yeah, because who wants to feel like they're constantly battling their own body?
Seriously. So one of the first things that jumped out at me from the video was how it really hones in on the importance of building long-lasting habits, moving away from that quick fix mentality that we see everywhere.
Absolutely. And that focus on habits is so crucial, especially when you look at like the scale of the obesity issue.
Yeah, for sure. The stats are pretty alarming. The video mentions that in the US, by 2020, over 42% of adults in some states were classified as obese.
Wow, over 42%.
Yeah, and that's a BMI over 30.
Right, right.
And that's not even counting everyone who's considered overweight, with a BMI over 25.
That's a huge problem.
So clearly there's this massive energy imbalance going on, right? We're taking in way more energy than we're using.
No doubt about it. We've got to address that imbalance.
Okay, so something I hear all the time is, oh, it's just my genetics. I'm just predisposed to gain weight, that kind of thing. But the video actually pushes back on that a little bit, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important to challenge that assumption.
Totally. Because, like the video points out, obesity rates have tripled in a lot of countries over the past, 60 years.
Yeah, that's way too fast for it to be just genetic.
Exactly. There's no way that our genes have changed that much in such a short time.
Right.
So clearly something else is going on. And the video really highlights the fact that what's changed so dramatically in the last, 6 decades or so is our daily habits, our lifestyles.
I mean, think about it. Everything's become so much more convenient, so much more sedentary.
Right. And we have way more access to highly processed foods. It's a recipe for weight gain.
Absolutely. The video argues that while some people might naturally have a slower metabolism because of their genes, it's probably much less common than we think.
Yeah, it's easy to blame our genes, but it's probably more about our choices.
Right. And that's actually kind of empowering because it means we have the power to change those habits.
I love that. It puts us back in control. So where do we even begin if we want to start tipping that energy balance in our favor? Well, the video lays down a super fundamental principle. It says that to lose weight, you have to consistently burn more energy than you take in.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Calories in, calories out, right?
Right, but then it adds this layer of nuance, which I thought was really interesting.
Okay, what's that?
It says that we want to make sure that the energy we're burning is coming from our fat stores.
Oh, I see. Not just burning through whatever's readily available in our bloodstream.
Exactly. If we're just burning sugar for energy, sure, we're using energy in the short term, but then what happens when we eat again?
Well, we just replenish those sugar stores.
Yeah.
And we haven't touched the fat.
Right. So we could be dieting, we could be exercising, but we might not actually be losing any fat.
That's why some people put in so much effort but don't see the results they want.
Exactly. So the video goes on to talk about specific strategies that we can use to kind of coax our bodies into burning fat for fuel, which is what we want.
I'm all ears.
Let's start with exercise. Now, we all know that exercise burns calories, but the video kind of breaks down where that energy is coming from during different types of exercise.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious about that.
So it says that our main energy sources during exercise are carbohydrates.
Like glucose in our blood and glycogen in our muscles and liver.
Exactly. And then fats, which come from free fatty acids in the blood and triglycerides stored in our muscles.
Right, right.
And then protein plays a smaller role. But the really key point is that the proportion of each of these fuel sources that we use changes depending on how intensely we're working out.
Okay, so if we're doing a really intense workout, we're going to be burning more carbs.
Exactly. And if we're doing something more moderate, we're going to be burning more fat.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's intuitive, right? If you think about sprinting versus going for a long walk.
Totally. Sprinting, you need that quick burst of energy.
Right. And the video explains that the reason for this is that these different energy sources become available at different speeds.
Oh, interesting. So carbs are like the quick responders.
Exactly. They're readily available fuel. Fats, on the other hand, are more of a slow-burning fuel source.
So fats are better for sustained activity.
Precisely.
Okay, so the video spends a lot of time talking about low to moderate intensity exercise, things like brisk walking. What's the main takeaway there?
So what the video highlights is that at around 65% of your maximum effort, which is often measured as VO2 max,
Right, I've heard of that.
your body burns the highest percentage of fat per minute of exercise.
Oh, wow. So there's a sweet spot for fat burning.
Exactly. So if you want to lose fat sustainably through exercise, you don't necessarily have to kill yourself with super intense workouts.
Okay, good to know. I think a lot of people assume you have to be totally wiped out after every workout to be burning fat.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. And the video gives a really concrete example. It says that for someone who weighs 80 to 90 kilograms.
Okay, about average.
An hour of walking on an inclined treadmill at around 5 kilometers per hour can burn almost 400 calories.
Okay, that's not bad.
Right. And get this, more than half of those calories can come directly from fat.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Right. It sounds a lot more manageable than trying to run a marathon every week.
Yeah, for sure. And probably a lot more sustainable too.
Exactly. And the video has some really practical suggestions for incorporating this kind of exercise into your daily life.
Like what?
Like instead of meeting a friend for coffee and sitting down, why not suggest going for a walk while you chat?
I love that. You get your social time and your exercise all in one.
Exactly. It's all about finding those little ways to move more.
Absolutely.
And the video also talks about just increasing your daily step count, which can have a surprisingly big impact.
Really? Just from walking more.
Yeah, for someone in that 80 to 90 kilogram range, hitting around 10,000 steps a day can burn something like 500 calories.
Wow, that's actually a lot.
Right, and that could potentially be enough to lead to weight loss over time, even without changing your diet much.
That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Now, the video does mention that it's not quite the whole story, and they allude to a more detailed discussion about calories somewhere else. But still, the point is that consistent movement really adds up.
It all contributes.
Okay, so we've talked about low to moderate intensity exercise. Now let's switch gears and talk about high intensity interval training, or HIIT.
Okay, HIIT. Yeah, I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah, it's really popular, but it might seem a little counterintuitive after all that talk about the benefits of moderate intensity for burning fat during exercise.
Right, because during HIT, you're working really hard, so wouldn't you be burning more carbs?
Exactly. And the video actually acknowledges that. It says that during those short bursts of intense activity, your body is mainly using carbs for fuel.
So why is HIIT still good for fat loss then?
Well, this is where this thing called the afterburn effect comes in.
Oh, okay. The afterburn effect. I've heard of that.
Yeah, so even though you're using more carbs during the actual HIIT workout, it triggers a prolonged increase in your calorie burn and your metabolic rate after you've finished exercising.
Interesting. So it's like your body keeps burning calories even after you've stopped working out.
Exactly. And that's because of a few different factors, including increased mitochondrial activity.
Oh, okay. So like your cells are working harder to produce energy.
Exactly. And the video also points out that HIIT is super time efficient.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's busy.
Right. Sometimes just 5 to 10 minutes of HIIT can have significant benefits.
That's great for people who don't have a ton of time to exercise.
Totally. And then the video mentions this really interesting synergy between HIIT and intermittent fasting.
Oh, okay. Intermittent fasting. Yeah, that's another one that's really popular these days.
Yeah, and for good reason. So the idea is that when you're in a fasted state, your glycogen stores in your liver and muscles are lower.
Right, because you haven't eaten in a while.
Exactly. So when you do HIIT in that fasted state, your body is more likely to turn to fat for energy.
Oh, I see. Because the readily available carbs are gone.
Exactly. So you're getting a double whammy of fat burning, both during the workout and during that afterburn period.
Okay, that sounds like a really effective combination.
Yeah, it seems to be. Now, there's one more important point about fat loss and exercise that I think is worth mentioning. The video clarifies that it's not as simple as the fat on your belly directly melting away while you're on the treadmill.
Right, right. Where does the fat actually go?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, the stored fat in your body is broken down into those free fatty acids and triglycerides that we talked about earlier.
Okay, yeah. To be used as fuel.
Exactly. But here's the surprising part. That fat is actually eliminated from your body primarily as water, which you pee out, and as carbon dioxide, which you breathe out.
Oh, wow. So you're literally breathing out your fat.
In a way, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know, right? It's like a whole new way of thinking about it. Okay, so we've covered exercise pretty thoroughly. Now let's talk about diet, specifically intermittent fasting, which the video also emphasizes quite a bit.
Okay, yeah. I'm interested to hear what they have to say about that.
So the basic principle behind intermittent fasting for weight loss is that by creating these specific eating and fasting windows, you're giving your body a chance to deplete its carb stores and shift to burning fat for energy for a longer period of time.
Okay, so it's like extending that fat burning window.
Exactly. And the video mentions that it generally takes about 12 hours of fasting for your body to really start tapping into those fat reserves.
Okay, so even without exercise, just not eating for 12 hours can start the fat burning process.
Yeah, that seems to be the general time frame. And of course, if you extend those fasting windows even longer, you're giving your body even more time in that fat burning state.
Makes sense. And I guess longer fasting periods would also naturally lead to eating less overall.
Right. Less time to eat, fewer calories consumed. And the video also talks about the benefits of combining intermittent fasting with a low glycemic index diet.
Oh, okay. Low GI. I've heard that's good for weight loss too.
Yeah. Basically, a low GI diet keeps your blood sugar levels more stable, so you avoid those big spikes and crashes that can make you crave unhealthy foods and overeat.
Right, so it's like you're keeping your hunger hormones in check.
Exactly. And when you combine that with intermittent fasting, which is already pushing your body to burn fat, it just makes the whole process even more effective.
Okay, so it sounds like these strategies are pretty powerful for people who are specifically trying to lose weight. But what about other goals, like gaining muscle?
That's a great question. And the video actually addresses that. It turns out that these same principles can be applied in different scenarios.
Really? So you could use these strategies to gain muscle too?
Yeah, so if your goal is to gain weight, specifically lean muscle mass, you can still use these methods of exercise and mindful eating timing.
Okay, but wouldn't you need to be eating in the calorie surplus to gain muscle?
Exactly, but the point is that by incorporating these strategies, you can minimize the amount of fat you gain alongside that muscle.
Oh, I see. Because your body will still be utilizing fat for energy during those fasting periods.
Right, so you're kind of optimizing the process, making sure that the extra calories you're consuming are going towards building muscle rather than just adding fat.
That's really interesting. So you can kind of hack your metabolism to get the results you want.
Exactly. And it works for body recomposition too, which is where you're trying to lose fat and maintain or even build muscle at the same time.
Okay, so how do these strategies apply to that?
Well, the idea is that by maximizing fat loss without going on a super restrictive diet, which can often lead to muscle loss, you're creating a more favorable environment for maintaining that lean muscle
So it's
mass.
like a more balanced approach.
Exactly. The moderate intensity exercise helps preserve muscle tissue, and the intermittent fasting and HIIT help you burn fat efficiently.
Okay, that makes sense. So it sounds like these strategies are pretty versatile.
They really are. And the video brings up one more factor that's often overlooked when it comes to weight loss: sleep.
Ah, right. Sleep is so important for everything.
It really is. And the video makes a really strong case that sleep deprivation can have some pretty serious metabolic consequences.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I don't get enough sleep, I tend to crave more sugary foods.
That's super common. And it makes sense because lack of sleep actually messes with your hunger hormones.
Really? It affects your hormones.
Yeah. So when you don't get enough sleep, your body produces more of the hormone ghrelin, which makes you feel hungry, and less of the hormone leptin, which makes you feel full.
Oh, wow. So you're basically fighting a losing battle if you're not getting enough sleep.
Pretty much. And the video mentions a study that showed that getting just 4.5 hours of sleep in one night can significantly impair your body's ability to use fat for energy.
Wow, that's just one night.
Yeah, it's crazy how much of an impact it has. And even consistently getting just a little bit less sleep than you need, like 6 hours instead of 7 or 8, can still have a negative effect.
So basically, if you're not prioritizing sleep, you're making it way harder to lose weight.
Exactly. The video doesn't go into too much detail about how to improve sleep quality, but they do mention that there are some tips in the description.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's worth a look. But the bottom line is that if you're serious about losing weight sustainably, you have to make sleep a priority.
Absolutely. It's non-negotiable.
Okay, so let's wrap up. Based on our deep dive into this video, what are the key takeaways? What are the sustainable strategies for weight loss that people can start implementing today?
Well, I think the video boils it down to a few fundamental lifestyle changes.
Okay, what are they?
So number one, move your body more at a light to moderate intensity.
Okay, like brisk walking. Right?
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Number two, incorporate some high-intensity interval training into your routine.
Even just a few minutes a day can make a difference.
Right. Number three, experiment with intermittent fasting and find what works for you.
And remember, it doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Right. Even just pushing your breakfast back an hour or two can be a good start.
And last but not least, make sure you're getting enough sleep.
Aim for 7 to 8 hours a night.
And the key here is that these aren't meant to be quick fixes or restrictive measures. They're about making long-term changes that promote your overall health and well-being.
Exactly. And when you're healthy and feeling good, fat loss naturally follows.
So it's not just about losing weight, it's about creating a sustainable lifestyle that supports your body's natural ability to regulate its weight.
Right. It's about finding a balance that you can maintain for the long haul.
I love that. So here's a final thought for everyone listening. Think about how incorporating even just one or two of these strategies, like starting a regular walking routine or trying out intermittent fasting, could shift your body's tendency away from storing excess fat and towards a healthier, more balanced state.
It's all about those small, consistent changes.
Exactly. What small change can you make today that will move you in the right direction?
And remember, it's a journey, not a race. Be patient with yourself and celebrate every little victory.
I love that. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's giving you some actionable insights that you can use to improve your health and well-being.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.